Welcome to the Five Heart Podcast with Jon and Todd, because that guy, Greg, with the great voice isn't here this week. I can pretend to be Greg. Hello, everybody. This is Greg Mahachko with the Five Heart Podcast. That's not really even close, is it?
No, not really. You know, with us two, they ought to call it the Five Heart Geezer Cast or something like that.
I'm not a geezer. You son of a bitch.
You're the dude. You're the dude.
I am. Look at this hair. I work hard at getting this way. Sometimes I don't shower for 3 or 4 days at a time, and it just shows up. So what's going on right now, Mr. Todd guy?
Well, it seems from a sports perspective, it seems like everybody in the country is focused on the NCAA basketball tournament. I've got the wrestling tournament on, but you know, the basketball tournament generates all this revenue that they put all these teams and coaches through hell this year with all this COVID stuff, and played it anyway so that they can have all that money coming into the NCAA coffers from CBS.
Well, it's important. It's important. Money makes the world go round.
Well,
maybe
there
not
you go.
For you commie bastard.
Yeah,
but
you capitalist.
For everybody else, did you do a bracket?
No, for the first year in a long, long time, I did not do a bracket because I don't care. I don't care.
No, you know why you do a bracket?
Tell me, John.
Okay, you do a bracket so that when you pick the most unlikely shit possible, like Iona over Alabama, that's what you tell people about. You go, I picked that. You might have got the other 38 games wrong that day, but if you get Iona over Alabama correct, that's the one you hang your hat on.
There you go. It's all bragging rights. It's all about bragging rights.
It is. Yeah. There's people that do this for money or to win their office pools. My daughter texted me 14 times this morning about this bracket thing, as if I knew what the hell was going on with basketball. You know who does know what's going on with basketball?
Who's that?
The Rotten Son.
Okay.
That guy knows what he goes out and he actually wins stuff and makes money off the NCAA tournament. He's very good at it. I showed him my bracket and he had fun with it, and I changed some things. But I have Creighton going out in the first round. You know, I guess Obama does too. Is that right?
I heard that. I heard that Obama had him going out.
Yeah, I don't know what that means, but PJ
Carlissimo had him going out too.
I picked Gonzaga to win it all because I'm that kind of a wiener. That way, I picked the upsets, and then I picked the Gonzaga. I picked Gonzaga versus Illinois in the top, the big game.
Well, I think I heard something when I was driving home from Minneapolis on Sunday. You know, they had the selection show on the radio, so I was listening to it. And they were talking, it's been like 7 years or something like that since the number one seed actually won the tournament. Don't hold me to that number, but it's been a while. You know, and I generally fill out a bracket just for fun, you know, and it's kind of cool to keep track of them. And you're right. If you get lucky and, you know, you pick that upset and very few other people did, you can pat yourself on the back and, you know, being all knowing when really it comes down to just a flip of a coin usually or something like that. So.
No, this is all science. It's all math.
All math.
It's Ken Palm.
Ken Palm.
You go to Ken Palm and you look at this and you go, wait a minute. Loyola Chicago is number 8 in the nation, according to Ken Palm, but they're an 8th seed. What the hell's going on here? And then you get into all this discussion about how the Midwest bracket is a complete mess and how they just gave Gonzaga an easy path to the Final Four. And really, you know, does it sound like I know what I'm talking about?
Well, it does sound like that. And you're putting a heavy emphasis on science and statistics and all of that objective stuff. I think that's crap. I think you go with karma and good luck charms and all that kind of, I mean, nobody else has Sister Jean. That's why Loyola wins. Loyola wins because they have a 101-year-old nun that knows the starting lineup, that blesses them before every game. no one else can compete with that. It has nothing to do with the numbers and the stats and all that kind of stuff. You roll Sister Jean out there on the court, and that's 25 points for Loyola.
Divine intervention, huh?
There you go. I mean, closer to God.
I'm going with math. That's in science, because in Kim Pom.
Yeah, but look where I was going to say, look where science has gotten us, but I'm not going down that road.
Here's how this works. People that listen this far, you can just make up whatever shit you want about teams, and it'll sound good. I really don't follow. I follow Big Ten basketball, but I have no idea. For example, Texas Tech should do well. Oklahoma State should do well. Texas is going to burn in hell because they're Texas and I hate them. But you can make up shit like, the Livers guy from Oklahoma State can shoot the three, and Tennessee's not going to be able to guard the outside. They're going to pull him outside. And I have no idea there's not a guy named Livers from place.
Yeah, he plays for Michigan. Livers plays for Michigan.
Well, he's out. So Michigan's, they're toast.
You know what I found out about this whole thing, and I just kind of fell into it. I happened to be out in Reno, Nevada during the first round of March Madness a number of years ago. And the casinos in Reno were absolutely packed. And they told me that's nothing compared to what it is in Vegas. When you have the first 2 weekends of the NCAA basketball tournament, that is one of the busiest weekends of the year in Las Vegas, because all those bettors want to be out there in the casinos with all of that excitement, intensity, watching those games, on the 7,000 screens that they have in those betting parlors out there. And, that's the way it is. But I remember when we were out in Reno, I was out there for a principals convention, and I'd left that morning and came back during the first round games. And it just shocked me how packed that casino was with all these people watching basketball games. For what that's worth, I guess it's a big deal for a lot of people.
Yeah, gambling. Somebody told me years ago, never gamble on anything but yourself.
I remember walking into a casino with this friend of mine named John Johnston. And when we walked into that casino, and we were probably about 20 foot, 30 foot into the casino, and John stuck out his arm, like you do with little kids when you hit the brakes in the car. John stuck out his arm and stopped me, and he said, "Shh, do you hear that?" And I said, with John always asks these questions. You don't know if they're rhetorical or if he really wants an answer. He says, "Did you hear that?" And I said, "What the hell are you talking about?" He says, "Just listen. Do you hear that?" And I said, "No. What do you hear, John?" And he said, "I hear misery, misery."
Is that a true story? I don't remember this at all.
That is absolutely a true story. Now,
where were we in a casino together?
That's something I don't remember, John. I don't remember where we were at. But you and I were in a casino somewhere.
Obviously, we were young.
We were quite a bit younger. We were younger.
So it's back in the 1880s.
There you go.
Okay, there's another tournament going on right now.
Yep.
Another tournament in which Nebraska isn't doing as well as you expected, we expected, everyone expected, I expected.
Yeah, I don't think they're doing as well as anyone expected, and that's too bad. In fact, they're in a break right now. We're talking the NCAA Wrestling tournament, and I'll tell you what, the steps that they've taken to keep everybody safe, this COVID mitigation down there, they've gone above and beyond anything that I ever would have thought of or have expected. One of the things they're doing is they're actually, today there should have been, well, technically there are only 2 sessions. You got this morning session and the evening session, but they've actually split each one of those sessions in 2. So they wrestle the first 5 weights, and then they take an hour break and disinfect everything. And all of those wrestlers that were in there for that round from 125 to 157, they get them out of the building, and then they bring in the guys from 165 up to 285 after they've disinfected. And one of the things that's really cool is they got, when they're cleaning the mats, when they're disinfecting the mats, for 100 years, well, not 100 years, but for the last 25 years, they've had these little cleaners that, they put in bleach or some disinfectant or whatever. And it's kind of a wet mop, but they drag them across the mats between sessions. Well, they're using those blue light or whatever they are, that there's some kind of a light that supposedly kills the COVID virus. And they've got them, they're probably about 4 foot wide, and they've got them on these little casters, and they're pulling these blue lights across these mats, disinfecting the mats between the sessions. So anyway, that has nothing to do with Nebraska's wrestling, but I found it kind of fascinating myself. Nebraska is not doing well. And it's, I was afraid that might happen. And I don't know why I had that feeling, but, in the first round today, they had 9 qualifiers. They won 6 of the 9 matches, which, normally you would say, hey, that's not too bad. I don't think anybody thought that Caleb Liking, the 157-pound kid from Norfolk, I mean, he's a walk-on. He's one of those Nebraska walk-ons. If it was a football player, the whole state would embrace him, and, he would become iconic. Good for him that he got to the NCAA tournament. He's in the consolation bracket. I didn't see how he did in his second match today, but he got beat at 157. But you're thinking, well, okay, kind of expected that. But then, holy Moses, the number 2 seeded guy at 197 pounds, Eric Schultz, who got second at the Big Ten tournament. He had been ranked number 1 going into the Big Ten tournament. He was wrestling the 31st seed from North Dakota State. He was up 2-0, and on top of this guy, and this guy did, and Jim Gibbons, one of the commentators, was when he was talking about, reviewing it, he said, folks, that's an old school side roll that every junior high kid in the country was taught how to do and how to defend. And he got rolled, and he got put on his back, and he got pinned. So
oh my God.
He was pinned in his first round match. The highest seeded wrestler, it's the upset of the first round, which, that sucks. It's great to be on the other side, like when you had Ridge Lovett beat Max Murren 2 weeks ago in the Big Tens. But it's too bad for Eric Schultz because he's a good guy. He's a hard worker. He's not going to be a national champion. And he can still wrestle back and get third place, but he's going to have to win 7 matches to do that. Too bad for him. And then Christian Lance at 285 got beat 2-1 by this Orndorff guy from Ohio State. That Christian Lance beat 2 weeks ago in the Big Ten tournament. But, Liam Cronin won, Chad Redd won, Ridge Lovett won, Peyton Robb, Taylor Vence, and Mikey Labriola, they all won. Well, in the evening session, which they've just finished, probably about 10 minutes ago, they just finished 125 through 157. Cronin got beat 2-1. And then Chad Redd, Mr. March, got beat 8-6 by Chad Redd's the 8th seeded guy. He got beat by the 9th seeded guy, a guy from Central Michigan. And so that's going to put Redd on the backside of the bracket rather than, moving forward with that potential showdown again with Jaden Ironman from Iowa. I didn't see Chad Redd getting beat this early in the tournament. So that's definitely a setback. I don't know how Caleb Liking did. Ridge Lovett got beat by Max Murren from Iowa, that was the big upset in the Big Ten tournament. And it was a really hard fought. It was a close match. Murren had more gas at the end of the match than Lovett did. And so that's
he's
what's
on meth. Is that what you're saying? It's an Iowa guy on meth. Son of a bitch.
Well, Max Murren, he's a kid that just, he's a hard driver. But, Ridge Lovett, God, you love watching that guy because he's so unorthodox, and he's a high risk wrestler. That's for sure. That's fun. But okay. Nebraska's in 10th place at this point, and I think most people had thought that they were going to, at least early on, are going to hang around that 4, 5, 6 range. But they've taken a couple on the chin today that have been huge setbacks. They can still win a lot of matches and score a lot of points, but it's harder at this point.
Okay, are we going to just say that this is yet another men's team that?
No.
This is what it looks like. This is what it literally looks like. There's a fucking curse, man. There's a curse or something.
Yeah, I'm not going to.
Somebody wronged the woman.
I'm not going to go that far. I'm chalking it up to a bad day, and because they've wrestled well all season, and they aren't clicking today for whatever reason.
I grew up Catholic in Western Nebraska. In the Lincoln Diocese, Todd, the Lincoln Diocese in Nebraska is the most conservative diocese in the nation. You think these priests would be out there exercising, getting rid of demons, but they're not. We need to get a hold of some priests and get them to do their jobs.
I'm getting to know people in the Lincoln Diocese, but I'm going to just stop right there. I value my job and my employment, so.
You don't want to go stand on a street corner? Because sometime I'm going to Lincoln, just going on a street corner. I'm going, hey, sorry. Okay. Yeah. Should we move to happier things?
Yeah, let's move to happier things.
Okay, we both went to U.S. Bank Stadium last weekend, and we watched baseball. I was there the entire weekend.
Yeah, you were the warrior. You watched a lot more baseball than I did. John, I tell you what, I was so excited about being able to watch live baseball, and I wrote the article that was on Corn Nation this week and trying to express my feelings about the whole thing. But people don't want to hear about my feelings. They want to hear about, Nebraska's baseball team. I got to watch, the game against Iowa on Saturday, and then the 2 games on Sunday, first Ohio State and then Iowa. Did not see the Ohio State game on Friday where, they just hit the ball all over the park.
They did.
Here's the thing about baseball. Baseball, maybe second to volleyball, is so streaky. I mean, you can be on fire for 3, 4, 5 games, and then all of a sudden the tide turns and the momentum moves the other way. It's different.
Okay. One of the things that I did, Wednesday, I missed the press conference with Will Bolt because I was going to ask him some questions. Number one, I was going to ask him about the ceiling.
Yeah.
Because, you were up in the press box. I was down in the sections where I could get hit by a foul ball at any moment.
Yeah.
and I think the section I was in collected about 70% of the foul balls.
There were a lot of foul balls where you were not too far away from you.
But, when they went up number one, when you're shooting with a camera, you're looking down the lens, and when the ball, you hear the ball connect. And one of the first things you do is you watch the reaction of everybody around because you want to know where the ball's going because you can't see it come off the bat. It's too fast.
Right.
So it can be very dangerous. I know some photographers actually wear baseball helmets when they're down in the dugouts and stuff like that, and which is smart. I don't have one. I should get one, but I'm kind of dumb. But when that ball went up in the ceiling, it was gone. I couldn't see it at all. And we saw fielders struggle with it. Iowa played Ohio State. I think you didn't see that one. That was Saturday evening, I think. Okay. Their left fielder Ohio State hit 3 balls into the left field that would have normally just been routine fly balls, and Iowa's fielder couldn't find them at all.
Yeah.
And Ohio State ended up winning that game largely because of that.
Well, what compounded the issues and why it's a unique situation there because half of the ceiling is glass and the other half is, metal or whatever. And so you got a solid background and you got a clear background. And depending upon where the sun is, and you mentioned that in one of the articles you wrote, depending on where the sun's at, that impacts the glare. And, when you're playing outside, you might have to deal with the sun, but you know where the sun's at. I mean, outfielders, that's part of being an outfielder and an infielder, is knowing where the sun's at, using your glove to shade the sun. I mean, they're all taught those techniques. But in that stadium, when the ball was going up, it was going up into that clear part of the ceiling.
Yeah.
And then when it was coming down, most of them, well, not most of them, but a high percentage of them, they were coming down in the solid part of the ceiling. And, when you say that some of those guys had no idea where it was at, even when they had an idea where it was at, I saw more guys catching balls like this over their shoulder, leaning back.
Right.
You don't see that on a normal stadium. Generally speaking, they catch the ball out in front of their face, above their head and in front of their face. They were 8 out of 10 fly balls to the outfield. They were catching behind their head. It was incredibly difficult for them, but hey, it was the same for both teams. And that's what coaches are going to say. It was the same for both teams. In the second game between Iowa and Nebraska, it cost Nebraska.
Yeah, it did.
It was a fly ball to shallow center field that they lost. Three guys lost it. And that ultimately,
I have a photo of that.
Yeah, you did. That ultimately led to Iowa scoring 3 runs. And that's the game of baseball. That's the game.
It's not a curse.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay, so the second question I was going to ask Will Bolt is, and maybe we talked about this a bit, but Luke Roskam looked terrible in some of his at-bats. He really did. He looked like he had no confidence. He swung haphazardly. And then on Sunday, he worked a walk by just taking pitches.
Yeah.
And the other guys, some of them other guys just walk up there and hit a fly ball. One pitch, hit a fly ball. Why aren't they taking pitches? How does that work? That's the part I don't get. The Iowa early in the second, third inning, you could see the Iowa pitcher was struggling a little bit locating the zone, and we didn't take any pitches. All we had to do is take some pitches and get a walk, get on base.
Well, Coach Bolt mentioned, in one of the articles that I read after, I think on Monday, maybe Monday or Tuesday, that they got out of their offensive approach. And, there's all different kinds of philosophies, but, generally speaking, you have one school of thought where you want your hitters to be aggressive and you want them, you don't want them taking pitches. If you teach them, if you get your pitch, you're going after it. If that first pitch is your pitch, you're going. There's another philosophy that says, hey, we're going to be patient until we get our pitch. And where Luke Roskam struggled so bad in that game against Iowa. It was Iowa, where he struggled so bad against him is that pitcher did not throw him a fastball anywhere close to the plate. Everything that he threw Luke Roskam was a breaking pitch or an off-speed pitch. And for whatever reason, Luke Roskam could not discipline himself to either stay off of those pitches or let the bad ones go. Luke Roskam, you're right. He looked like a fish out of water, which is unfortunate for him because, he had the matchup. He was in the lineup because Iowa was throwing a right-handed pitcher. Luke Roskam's a left-handed hitter. But you know what? Luke Roskam's a senior. And the next day he came back and showed all kinds of patience. So, the hitting coaches and him, they sat down, they probably put an emphasis on it in batting practice. And, he didn't come out and hit the ball all over the park on the second day, but he was a different hitter on that particular day.
Then he had that play at the plate where he blocked the plate like God.
Yeah,
and then he took over the whole fucking field. Took over the whole field.
Yeah,
coming out on the infield like a catcher. I mean, he looked like a fucking tank going out there.
Yeah, your perspective on that was perfect because you were just you had that angle where you could see him going out there on the field. And but Luke Roscom is a good player. Luke Ostrom's Roscom, he's a good hitter. He's shown that over the years. But he had a rough day on Saturday, and that happens to guys.
I'm picking on you, Luke, because I love you, man.
But, there were some other hitters that had, right now Cam Chick has been struggling a little bit, and there have been times when Cam Chick leads the team, and he is a leadoff hitter, and you need that guy getting on base. But he's gotten off to kind of a slow overall, you look at the team average and we all get caught up on how well these young guys are hitting and how Joe Acker's been hitting and Schwellenbach to an extent. But they kind of came back to reality a little bit on Sunday. The bats went cold. Iowa pitched them well, and so did Ohio State. They had the Ohio State pitcher on the ropes in the first inning. And then he got himself squared around, and he was tougher than nails through the sixth. So what concerned me a little bit is that I think that a lot of Nebraska's hitters lost their discipline at the plate a little bit. And, we'll see if Coach Bolt gets them turned around and they're back to where they were at when they started the season.
So who else did you see? I saw Chance Roach.
Chance Roach is a good pitcher. He's a good pitcher.
You know what? It wasn't that just him pitching. It was the way that he carried himself. Because when you're looking at everybody with a long lens, you can see like their expressions on their face. And he just looks like, he looks like a fucking gentleman out to walk out to a gunfight on a really hot afternoon without any sweat on him. And the other guy's just going to die before he even pulls his gun because he looks at Chance Roach and he goes, that's it. I'm done. I'm fucked that shit.
Yeah.
I just loved the way he pitched. He was very machine-like in a way. He was very methodical, the way that I know they all have their routine, right? Every pitcher has the motions they go through, and it's really kind of cool to see the differences, but there's something about him I just loved watching. And then Cade Povich was, the first game was just like bang, gaboom, 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 bang.
I was really happy to see Cade Povich come back and be so dominant. I mean, he was dominant on Friday. I listened to the game on the radio driving up. But, he had a rough start the previous weekend. And, this is something that it didn't register with me until Sunday afternoon. Of the four guys that Nebraska is starting on the weekend, you're putting three left-handers out there on the mound. And that's an advantage for Nebraska to be able to put three left-handed starting pitchers out there on the mound. And, so I think, that to me says quite a bit. Now, but baseball is a game where a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on statistics. It's the great statistics game. And when you start thinking about it, though, if you're hitting 300, you're hitting, you're doing really, really well. And so people tend to come back to average, and your good players, kind of come back to where those averages are at. So, as hot as they were the previous weekend, they were playing some good competition this last weekend. Ohio State and Iowa were both, according to the prognosticators, they're supposed to be upper half of the conference type teams. And
Iowa can't generate on the offense. They're not going to finish in the top half of the
I was shocked to see how poor their averages were. Because, there's some guys that I've seen play there for the last few years that have certainly hit a lot better than the way they've started this year.
That number 5, who is number 5 for Iowa?
Was his name? Oh gosh, he's a good player.
I hate to pick on the guy, but oh my God,
yeah.
Every time he got up the bat, I have like probably 40 photos of him walking away from the home plate with this just look of death on his face. And it was horrible. I felt bad for him, even though he's a fucking Iowan. But he he looked like he was drained.
Yeah.
And, you try to take pictures of people's emotions and reactions, and I didn't put any of those up, but I did give them to the Iowa guys. And I thought, this poor bastard he is not having a good time this week.
Well, that's the way the game goes. I mean, their leadoff hitter, who was their leadoff hitter on Saturday, a freshman kid from Nevada, he didn't see they put in a pinch hitter for him late in that game, and then you didn't see him again. The last two games they played, he did not play. So it's early in the season. Coaches are still trying to figure out what they've got. Coach Bolt put a different lineup out there, from one game to the next. He's still tinkering around. You asked who else did I see? I'll tell you what, these young guys are going to be good. Jack Steele is, he's a good player. Luke Banjoff,
he's studly.
He is. Leighton Banjoff,
just a studly guy.
Leighton Banjoff, he was there last year. He's a hitter, and he's going to be a good player. It's going to be interesting because you got both, Steele and Banjoff that are first basemen. You can't play two of them there. So, you got to find a way to get both those guys in the lineup. One of them is going to be a designated hitter.
You think Max Anderson has his driver's license yet?
I don't know.
He literally looks like he's 15 years old.
He does. But I'll tell you what, that kid's got some hips and legs on him, and he's quick, man. His bat speed, he gets the bat through the zone. He's a hitter. And Bryce Matthews, the freshman from Texas that's playing second base, he's cooled off a little bit. But one of the things I want to mention before we move off baseball is, I saw it on Slack today. Somebody put it up there that Nebraska has the best fielding percentage of any team in the country. And, I haven't seen them make an error.
Right.
That is incredibly important, and you hear it all the time in football, defense wins games. We could have that argument till the cows come home, but, Nebraska is not making defensive mistakes, which that has been their Achilles heel in the last few years. And Coach Bolt has these guys playing good defense. There's some depth in the lineup so that you can go the lefty-righty stuff. But like I said, he's still trying to figure out how to get some really good players out on the field. Mojo Hagee finally got his first start. And now Mojo's been injured a little bit, but, he's got guys that want to be out on that field playing, and they're going to fight tooth and nail to get their shot. That's a good problem to have.
What else did we see about it? You know what the problem with baseball is they got to keep up with Michigan and Indiana. And Michigan and Indiana right now are ahead of us. I think Michigan's only lost one game, but somebody played Penn State, so.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. Michigan, I think Nebraska plays Michigan the last series of the season in Lincoln. Good. Get those sons of guns down there and see. We'll see who's got what at that point. I'm worried about the series this weekend in Iowa City. I've been to Iowa City and watched Nebraska play there on two different occasions, and they have not played well in Iowa City. And Coach Heller, he is as good of a baseball coach as there is in the Big Ten Conference. And
you are so much more respectful than I am for everybody. Good God. I was right behind the Iowa dugout. So I did hear the coaches talking about how the ball was moving around. When it was hit way high into the ceiling, they were talking about how it moved and there must be a draft up there. But that was something I was going to ask, and then I completely spaced off the presser. Anything else about baseball? We'll move on to volleyball.
No, just looking forward to the series this weekend with trepidation. How's that?
You beat the shit out of Iowa.
I hope so.
Minnesota couldn't generate offense for shit, which is You notice that Minnesota scheduled their games in the evening.
There was a reason for that.
One of the Minnesota guys, I pointed that out to him, and he looked at me and he goes, "What do you think we are, stupid?" I said, I get it. If it was my home stadium, that's what I do. And they didn't have to deal with any of the balls in the air stuff. Because you hate it when you can't find your balls. Anyway, volleyball, what do you got? What's going on?
Volleyball? Well, so all this intense volleyball, John, against Ohio State was going on while you and I were watching baseball. And, Nebraska, in the two games they played against Ohio State, both games went 5, or both matches went to the 5th game. Nebraska pulled the one out on the first night, and then the second night, Ohio State got them. And Coach Cook, I read something in one of the newspapers. He said that when it came down to the end, the team that wanted it the most is the one that won. In both instances.
Do you think that's it? You know what I think?
What do you think?
I think the priests in Ohio are doing a better job than the priests in Nebraska. Because the priests in Ohio are giving all the evil demon shit to like University of Ohio or Youngstown or somebody else. Now they got a magical season going on in volleyball.
Well, one of our volleyball writers at Coronation had commented about how well coached, the Ohio State team is. And, they got a lot of resources there. If they can attract, the right kind of athletes, they could be good. But, I've never, how do I want to say this? A loss in the regular season in most sports, it doesn't bother me if the team learns from it and can move forward because of the loss. Unfortunately, we have some of our sports that are set up that, losses can keep you from playoffs, et cetera, which, I understand that part of it too. But this loss is not going to keep Nebraska from advancing in the Big Ten tournament and moving forward. They played Iowa last night. The score looked pretty dominant, but again, they weren't firing on all cylinders like they normally do when they win by scores like that. Iowa goes over to Lincoln and plays them this weekend. Maybe there'll be a little bit more fire and energy coming out of them.
Maybe we should just have a group of women assassins, because women in Nebraska seem to kick ass. Maybe they just kick the shit out of all the other. Just start assassinating. All right, stop that. Okay, let's move on.
Maybe we should just drop. Maybe we should just drop football.
Oh God, Todd. Yeah. Just go ahead. Okay, so in the last week, some things happened with Nebraska football.
Well, some I don't. You and I were talking about this a little bit earlier, and I don't quite get it. Because maybe I just haven't heard the whole story or read enough, but. It came out in the news the other day that our AD, Bill Moose, has announced that they had been looking into the possibility of putting a home football game on September 4th. And I'm looking at this saying they already play 12 games, but I don't know the rule. Are you capped at 12 games? Can you play 13 regular season? If you can play 13 regular season games, why the hell haven't you been playing them just for the revenue? So my guess is that we're capped at 12 games. So does that mean if they can get a game on September 4th, they're going to pay off southeastern, northwestern Louisiana or whoever it is that they play at the end of the season?
I didn't even know there was a southeastern Louisiana, man. I looked at the schedule and went, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, southeastern Louisiana. Southeastern Louisiana has to be ocean. It has to be swamp. I mean,
yeah. I think southeastern Louisiana is actually Mississippi, but they didn't want to be called Mississippi.
Well, is that the plan? Because obviously you can't drop a Big Ten game. We already have Buffalo coming to Lincoln. Oh, do you suppose they would consider dropping Oklahoma?
What? They'd never do that. Never in a million years would they ever consider dropping the most marquee game we've had in years, one that marks the 50th anniversary of one of the most amazing games in the history of college football, not just Nebraska football, not just Oklahoma football, but football itself. They would never consider that ever.
So the only explanation that I can come up with is if they can find a home game on September 4th, that they'll pay off whatever they have to pay off Southeastern Louisiana to get a home game earlier in the season and have a bye before Wisconsin and Iowa.
You've had a long storied career in education. Have you ever done contingency planning?
Yes.
Okay. You know that during contingency planning meetings that you literally come up with every possible thing that might ever happen, no matter how fucking stupid it is, just so it's on the list. Right?
Yes, but generally we do not make that available to the public.
Well, that's where the leaking comes in. But you know the contingency planning meetings, that's what you do.
Yeah.
And I've been in contingency planning meetings because for a part of my career, I've been involved in disaster recovery planning for IT departments and things like that. And literally during contingency planning meetings, I have suggested that we plan for alien invasions, as in UFOs, not fucking aliens from Mexico or them fucking Canadians. I literally have said out loud, we need to plan for alien invasions. And people would look at me and I go, I want to make sure it's on the list because it sounds stupid until it happens. And somebody says, why didn't you think of that? Well, it's there. And honest to God, one time, I'm not making this up, I brought up the possibility of trained communist rats in the ceiling chewing through network wires. That is not a lie. That is literally a thing that I came up with in a contingency planning meeting for disaster recovery. And again, everybody looked at me and they said, what the hell is wrong with you? And I said, you come up with every possibility, no matter how dumb it is. And replacing the Oklahoma game is dumb. It is.
But
it's stupid.
It's stupid.
Not alien invasion dumb or trained communist rats in the ceiling dumb, but it's pretty fucking stupid.
It is. It's one of the most ridiculous things that I've heard. And, it just blows my mind that, there's probably other voices at the table, but you have Bill Moose and you have Scott Frost, who between the two of them are going to have the final call. One of them is going to have the final decision. And the fact that was even a consideration for either of those two guys, I think is one of the biggest black eyes that Nebraska football has ever taken.
Now that's hyperbole.
Well, just the mere thought of it. But
Bill Callahan was a big black fucking eye. We had to put up with him for a long time.
Well, I get that.
Do you remember him kicking a field goal at Pitt from like the 0-yard line on the road? Because that's what they do in the NFL. Everybody in their right mind knew that son of a bitch was a shitty coach when he did that. But we still had to endure 2-3 more years of the fucker.
I just don't know. So, John, what's the advantage? Is the reason to put a game on September 4th if they can get it? To have is the motive behind that to have a bye week before Wisconsin and Iowa? Is that the motive?
No.
I mean, that makes some sense to me, but
okay, we're going to play Illinois, Oklahoma, Buffalo, and Michigan State for our first 4 games.
Yeah.
Well, Buffalo won the MAC or something, didn't they, last year? They're not the shitty team they used to be. Illinois, they got Burt in charge now, so God knows what they're even going to do. But Bert's the one that came up with that. Wasn't Bert the Oklahoma or the Wisconsin coach that beat us 70-31?
Might have been.
Yeah. Because he finally let his offensive coordinator go wild. He never wanted him to run that offense before. And then their defensive coordinator was like, hey, you know what we'll do? We'll stand up at the line. So Taylor Martinez can't make any calls. And then the whole offense explodes because Bo Pelini never did what, Todd? He never did a contingency planning meeting. Figuring out, well, what if they stand up at the line and we don't know where their defensive line is doing, how they're lining up? What if they run the jet sweep over and over? Why? Because nobody in any of these meetings ever said, what if there were trained communist jet sweeps in the game? Well, okay, so we're the reason why we're looking for a game September 4th is two reasons. Number one, we want to win, and we're paranoid. That's the losers. You know what I mean? We're so beat up now by Nebraska football that we have a loser's mentality when we look at it. We go, well, obviously they're going to put a Southeastern Tennessee in there because we need a win. We're going to lose all them other games against them name opponents. And then Oklahoma's going to kill us 73-2. And then all life will end. So they need a win, and they're on September 4th against some shitty directional team. Second thing, they need a home game for revenue. That's been brought up because, we need revenue, which is odd because Nebraska's got to be one of the most well-run athletic programs in the nation. Well, if they're so worried about people, and the other reason is because we need to maintain the sellout streak. And I think they're actually, above all things, the sellout streak is sacred. And if they don't, you want people to come to the game in September that they know they're going to win. So you keep the sellout streak intact. So the revenue comes in. So the Haymark people are happy and the bar people are happy. And that's what I see. I'm out of breath.
Yeah. Well, spring practice is not that far down, the road. And, people are already talking about running backs and offensive linemen and tight ends and all that kind of stuff. And I normally don't get that excited about spring practice. Or the spring game. Never been to the spring game. But
what the hell is wrong with you?
But I am curious this year, what players, start that upward trajectory. And we may not know that because,
we're going to have a conversation about how content works, Todd. See, that's what we do at Coronation. We create content that people want to listen to. So when we talk about the offensive line, we don't just, oh shit, we'll get there. One of the problems about football is Nebraska really has underachieved over the past 3, 4, 15 years. And the problem with it is you have months to wait before they can prove anything. So during this time, any misstep becomes magnified, by millions of times, and anything that happens, everybody just poops themselves. So
right. Well, and that's going to happen after the spring game because there's going to be players that are going to, jump into the portal again, and people are going to be freaking about that. It's, in my mind, that's not a bad thing that there are players getting in the portal because there's roster management issues anyway because of the whole COVID thing. And with the exception of Wan'Dale Robinson, there hasn't been a guy jump into that portal yet that, well, maybe there might've been another one, but for the most part, okay, go find another place. Even back in the 80s when, we were down on campus and hanging around, there were walk-ons that came in, and there were some of those low-level recruits, after that red shirt year, they'd take that red shirt year and they'd figure out, I am never going to find any place on the field. And it's not that important to me to have senior day where my parents can be down on the field and I can run out of the tunnel and get my name announced. I want to play somewhere. And
Right.
there were probably 20 players a year, if not more, that left the Nebraska program and ended up at Peru State or wherever it might be, Chadron State, somewhere playing football because they wanted to play the game. And that's why guys go to college to play. Most of them, they want to play the game. So,
well, Nebraska basketball lost 3 guys. Elijah Wood, who really didn't see the court. I'm missing one of them. Oh my God. Ivan Udrago, who I loved that kid. I loved watching him and I hoped the best for him, but he really didn't develop into a Big Ten basketball player.
The kid from Omaha, a crop or something like that.
Oh, a crop. Yeah. I thought he was supposed to be a highly prized recruit, a guy, but I think you had Eduardo Andre suddenly showed up, and Andre looks like, he's really raw, but he's going to be, him and Walker are going to be the guys, Yeah. And Drago just, I love the fact that he came from France when he was 17 years old. He chose Nebraska. It was interesting to watch him play. Didn't develop, he doesn't belong at, I don't want to say Division I don't know, but he doesn't belong in the Big Ten. So the best of luck to all of those guys, Well, I imagine Fred Hoiberg just looked at him and said, look at the roster, guys. You're not.
I'm sure that's what happened.
I don't think Nebraska is the kind of school that just sits down and says, why don't you get the fuck out of here? Because there are a lot of schools that do that. If you go around talking to former players and things like that. But I don't know.
Well, Hoiberg's going to bring in a few new players next year, and he's got now some scholarships freed up. And, that's how he builds programs, and hopefully there's enough of the nucleus that comes back that after a second year in the system, they're gonna perform better. So
we should probably end soon.
Yeah, well, the wrestling tournament is coming back, so I kind of
you need to go watch.
Yeah. So
I think I'm going to go watch Michigan State play UCLA and laugh at the teams that they used to be.
There you go.
Because if there's one thing I want to see every year, what I look forward to most in the NCAA basketball tournament is shots of people weeping.
Well,
shots of people in the stand with tears streaming down their cheeks because their Cinderella moment didn't get realized.
There will be fans, maybe like 25% of the stadium or arena. There will be fans there, John, so you may get your wish. Now, if you cheer real hard for UCLA and if they beat Michigan State, you're going to have a very close friend of yours that's going to be weeping a lot of tears.
I'm not a UCLA guy. Fuck them. They had their day. It might have been decades ago, but they can go to hell.
There you go.
All right. If you made it this far into the podcast, please give us some feedback. We never get feedback. We'd like some feedback. You can tell Todd he's a commie, or me that I'm a really sweet guy with a heart of gold. We like it when people lie to us too.
Yeah,
right.
Lies are good.
Is there anything else?
Oh, geez, I just looked and they're just showing Eric Schultz getting pinned. Yeah, let's end this thing.
Oh, God, really? Yeah. Oh, earlier. All right, thank God. All right, This has been the 5 Heart Podcast, because 5 hearts is the only hearts you need. Todd?
How's your heart, John?
It's great. It's full of gold.
Go Big Red.
Go Big Red. And we're done.